Hello and welcome to Converge 2020, Globant's sixth annual conference where we bring together some of the world's top technology experts and leaders to discuss the future of business. My name is James Taylor and I'll be your host for today's session titled A New Era of Collaboration. The theme of this year's virtual conference is the rise of augmented collaboration, and we have some incredible guest speakers for you today. But before we start, I'd like to thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us. I know that you and your families and your companies have gone through a very challenging few months with COVID-19. In the process, we've lost friends, loved ones, and cherished colleagues, but the pandemic has also seen scientists, businesses, and governments collaborate in new and innovative ways. As a human race, we are going through what the World Economic Forum calls the Great Reset. See, the old era was one of siloed teams and overly bureaucratic systems. This new era is one of agility and collaboration. The old era was one of low productivity and command and control structures. This new era is a time to accelerate innovation and foster creativity. We are truly living at an incredible moment in human history. Exponential technologies like AI, IoT, and robotics are creating new disruptive business models almost overnight. And in this new era, there is one distinctively human competitive advantage that you and your team must leverage: your creativity, your ability to collaborate and build amazing things together. And that's what this session is all about. However, we have a slight problem. According to a recent report by Globant, almost half of those surveyed said that their work output had actually decreased since working from home. In our post-coronavirus world, organizations need to rethink how to better connect and engage their distributed teams. We need new ways to collaborate, to spark innovation, and to boost productivity. As we'll hear today from our speakers, this can be achieved by leveraging technology to augment collaboration, increase engagement, and develop employee skills. It requires that we rethink the traditional organizational chart and how to create better company cultures so we can adapt to these seismic changes. Now, here's some good news for you. Every single person watching this today has an almost unlimited capacity to generate ideas, to revolutionize the industry. And through Globant's ability to deliver engineering, innovation, and design at scale, it's possible to take your ideas and reinvent your industry for this new era. Someone attending this virtual conference could revolutionize their industry. That person could be a member of your team. That person could be you. However, you'll only get there if you go from saying to yourself, not just how can we improve collaboration amongst our people, but how do we reinvent ourselves through AI to augment collaboration in our organization. It's my great pleasure now to welcome our first keynote speaker. In 2003, Martin Migoya co-founded Globant together with three friends with the aim of building a company that would reinvent the professional services industry and become a leader in delivering digital and cognitive transformation. Martin has served as chairman of Globant's board and chief executive officer since 2005. As Globant's CEO, Martin drove the company from a small startup to an organization with more than 12,000 professionals and presence in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. Today, Globant is working with world-class customers such as Google, Electronic Arts, Disney, and Southwest Airlines, among others. Globant is listed on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker GLOB, and its solutions have been featured as case studies by such prestigious universities as Harvard, MIT, and Stanford. Martin himself was selected Endeavor Entrepreneur 2005 and has won several awards as an innovative entrepreneur and CEO. He was recognized with the Entrepreneur of the Year award by Ernst & Young in 2013. He is also, as you might see from his office, that guitar singing in the corner, I think, a rather accomplished musician. So please welcome to the Converge 2020 virtual stage, Mr. Martin Migoya.
Thank you very much, James, for such a great introduction. How are you?
Very, very, very well. And I noticed that guitar, and I had to mention it because I noticed that you have a passion for music as well. But we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say in this first keynote. So, Martin, the virtual stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. As James was saying, yes, I'm at home, and it's the first edition of Converge that will be 100% virtual. And extremely happy for what we're doing today, and extremely happy to have all of you, watching us. As he said, I'm in my studio here. I'm just trying to cope with this new situation that we all have. And I would like to say hi to our Globers that are joining us today, as well as our speakers and all of you. And as James mentioned, I know some of our Globers and some of our people are going through difficult times during these days, and I want to be close to them, and I want to be as much of help as we can be. And as we know, we are living challenging times at global scale. I still remember at the very beginning of March when I received that call from Patricia Pomies, our Chief Delivery and People Officer, and she was telling to me, Martin, we need to send everybody home. I said, no way, how we are sending everybody home? And she said to me, yes, we need to send everybody home because we don't know how this is going to evolve. We need to be prepared for that. And then the magic started to happen. We moved everyone from the offices into their places in just 4 days. Today, 100%, pretty much 100% of our people are working from home. We did it in a very smooth way. And at the very beginning, the questions were totally different. I remember waking up every morning and saying how we will survive this, how this will be, the next normal, for how long this will last. And, but very soon with the weeks, we started to adapt, and we started to understand what's the meaning of working from home, new discussions around, households, and who's going to wash the dishes, or who's going to help the kids with the homeworks, or how to share spaces, and watching a transformation that I was expecting from many years ago. Our kids going 100% virtual in how to go and get educated. Amazing. And then, at some point, taking their computer, opening up and seeing and doing, virtual gymnastics with their friends on Zoom, or, hanging and fighting for the PlayStation, and in essence, rediscovering many things that before were much more difficult. So with all this, I think that all the bad things that are happening is something that is terrible. But also we're seeing some positive impacts. We're seeing some kind of a legacy that we're trying to see that this pandemic is leaving to us. And at personal level, I would say is valued our relationships, how the education is being pushed to change. At a company level, we discovered that we can work very efficiently from home. And there are some things we need to pay attention to, as I will explain later, but there are some things that are already happening. We're also seeing that every organization is really accelerating the way they need to change, and they are accepting that transformation or digital transformation in a much more, I would say, smooth way. And with pretty much there's no more discussion about that, if that needs to happen or not. It's not just every organization. It's every organization. It's not just companies. It's companies, it's the government. The government needs to transform and to become a more agile organization for the citizens. We started to see how this inverted pyramid concept that we have been using for years, where our pods on the top has the full autonomy to be able to take decisions and be able to connect with our customers, started to work in a much more efficient way, as now we don't have the way to tell them what to do in such an easy way. And those are transformations that are really impressive in terms of proving models, in terms of understanding that transformation needs to happen. We cannot wait any longer. And also, we have seen how technologies like Zoom, all the software as a service things and all the document sharing things has really evolved. You see you have seen the valuation of Zoom going from, I think it's, well, a few billion to, a huge amount during today. I think that, although things are happening are great, but I also think that we are on the very beginning of this new stage, of this new era, where Zoom, Office 365, Google Docs, all that is, for me, collaboration 1.0. And in my perspective, there's a lot of more things that needs to happen as we progress. And augmented collaboration, for me, is the way the name we put to the next thing that is happening in terms of how we collaborate as humans. AI, artificial intelligence, is a great thing for many things, and it can also help to be able to collaborate in a much more efficient way. So I think that through augmented collaboration and through the use of artificial intelligence, there are many things that we can start to change and we can start to augment. So we started to experiment a few years ago using artificial intelligence to be able to accelerate the way the people that is generating code for programming at Globant is doing their job. And we were very successful with that. Now we have the full augmented coding, but in this environment, augmented coding is even more necessary. Just imagine that before we were able to sit down in an office, just turn our body if we need help, and be able to receive that help from the senior person that was seated beside us. Well, today those things are not possible any longer. Or you need to schedule a call with that person that you needed to ask help instead of making it more dynamic. I still think that the fact that augmented collaboration allows you to augmented coding allows you to type your intention and receive that piece of code that you need to use, or you can change or alter or be more dynamic to produce code in a much more efficient way, to produce code in a much more predictable way, is something that now takes a totally different meaning. So this is one of the components of the augmented collaboration, how we can create code without the help of that senior person that was just sitting beside me, and how can I get artificial intelligence to provide me those insights for me to be better. That doesn't stop there. Imagine, as we are creating at Globant, that we can have a virtual camera that is showing like me now in this Zoom, but is enhancing this image with real-time information of the scrums that I'm participating here on the corners of the screen. All right, and it can provide me with more context about the person that I'm talking with, or the team that I'm connecting with. So providing more information around those contexts is even better than being connecting in person. So that's something that how to enhance this connection is also a way of augmenting this collaboration. Also, how we augment our knowledge. Again, when we were, at the office, we can ask for things that now is much more difficult. So how we create a platform to be able to, given the intention to receive all the proposals in the case of Globant, for example, that are similar to that, so we can use that and create a new proposal for a new customer. Well, those are the kind of things that we are working every day, at Globant as augmented collaboration. Those things are connected to how to augment our work, okay? And how to be able to augment our collaboration on the things that we do every day. Now we're applying augmented and artificial intelligence to many other places, like how we recruit, how we are able to recruit using the knowledge of how that candidate compares to our 3,000 best performers or things like that. Now, artificial intelligence and augmented collaboration also has a component that has to do with how we augment culture. So, as we have been speaking in former and earlier versions of Converge, we have founded this company under the heavy use of a social operating system, under the heavy use of technology, in order to be able to scale up our culture. That technology is called StarMeUp OS. This is what we have been using during the last 10, 12 years. And at the very beginning, it started like a game in which you had like 20 stars every month to recognize for those amazing things that people were doing inside the organization. And those things, in essence, were things that allow us to understand who were the people that were creating or are creating a difference in front of a customer, or connecting to our company, or making the company better. So StarMeUp started to create, like a lot of insights for us, even, to be able to predict in some way how attrition would behave. I mean, if we are able to teach a machine all the engagement curves of the people that has left the organization, then we will be able to predict when that engagement curve changes. We're able to predict when a person is about to leave the organization, so we can, have a conversation and understand better how that person can be retained in the organization, if that's what we want. But what's happened now that we are all, in a distributed places, and by the way, we have been experimenting this for many years. What happens is that all those moments where we were crossing in an aisle with another person, or drinking a coffee with, a colleague that we were not expecting, where ideas were exchanged, or where, new things or new solutions to problems that we didn't know are discovered, just disappeared. Basically, either we generate those meetings in a proactive way, or those meetings or those encounters doesn't exist anymore. And that's a big problem for collaboration, because collaboration is supposed to have a big component of things that are just random, because we are in the same place. And now it's not happening anymore. So I think that the next level of collaboration, I would say collaboration 2.0, should be able to recreate those places or those situations in which serendipity play a game, where things happen without us understanding why they're happening. So we created a solution inside the StarMeUp OS in which the software asks you, and we are working on that, we're improving that. The software just asks you, give me some slots that you are available. And then tell me, do you want to have meetings with people with the same hobbies you have? Or do you want to have meetings with people that are in your same project? Or connected to augmented coding, do you want to have, like a virtual connection with people that are trying to resolve the same issues you're trying to resolve? Or you want to talk with the people that are in your same pod, in the same project? And then in the back, the system will generate those meetings at the space that you said, and we connect the people without you needing to recreating those virtual chill out moments, those virtual coffee moments that never happened before. In essence, and make a summary, we feel that augmented collaboration is something that needs to come. Is a way in which even when we come back to the office, we will need to have tools that allow us to collaborate better than before. Using it to generate code, like we use for augmented coding, using it to recruit, to design, to be able to work out the company better, to have a better meeting on a Scrum meeting, to have a set of knowledge that is more accessible and more understandable by anybody, to augment our culture, to be able to augment the video calls, to be able to do those virtual chill out moments. Well, all those things that can be made using artificial intelligence and a little bit of platforms is a way in which artificial intelligence, again, is augmenting our capacities, as we have been saying in the past. Again, is making collaboration better. So I think that this pandemic has helped us to go deeper into these things, has helped us to be able to connect more with those situations and to understand better how all these technologies can change while we're working distributed, like we're today, everyone from their places, or even when we come back to the office, how the new things will happen, and which is the legacy of the situation we are living today. So I would like to, finish this small speech by inviting all of you to understand and to discover which are those situations in which augmented collaboration should take a place, and how to take collaboration from what we're doing today, which is collaboration 1.0, to the next level of collaboration. And I think there's a lot of things to be talked about. There's a lot of things to start exploring that we never thought before. That is a breakthrough on what's coming in terms of how to collaborate. So with this, I finish, and I want to give a special thanks to everybody that is participating today, starting by Guy Kawasaki, innovation speaker, chief evangelist of Canva, and the best-selling author of The Art of the Stars. And then Pascal Finette, co-founder of Be Radical. James Taylor, the one that introduced us. Thank you very much, James. Creativity speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, founder of C-School. Madeleine Dinono, CEO of Gina Davis Institute. Thank you, Madeleine. Christian Tomasowski, mobile banking development lead at FIS. Thank you, Christian. Marina, our chief solution officer, Marina Sanlari. Aldo Esponton, a big component of our artificial intelligence efforts. Guibert Englebien, founder and co-founder together with me, and CTO of the company, who's going to be speaking later. And of course, to all our brand team who works putting together this event and valuable content. Thank you very much to all of you. And please, James, now the stage is all yours. Thank you.
And thank you, Martin. Fascinating insights there about augmented collaboration, the role of culture, and how to create those chance encounters virtually. Now, Martin was just talking about this idea of collaboration. So we want to get you involved in this collaboration as well. So what you can be doing just now is make sure that you're following along all of this in terms of social media. The hashtag that we're using for this event is hashtag Globant Converge. That's Globant Converge. And actually, if you're watching this just now on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the Globant YouTube channel. Okay, so we heard some fascinating things there. And I've already started to think about the idea, the role of place and how that has an effect on how we collaborate. And seeing Martin surrounded by his guitars also reminded me how much we can learn about collaboration from musicians. You know, if you're in a band, you need to listen to the other musicians and be agile in your approach and improvisational. In fact, last year I was giving a keynote in New York, and after I'd spoken, I went down to Pier 17 to watch a concert by the Mexican singer-songwriter Natalia Lafourcade. You see, before I became a professional speaker and MC, I used to actually manage the careers of high-profile music artists. So I had the pleasure of working with members of the Rolling Stones, multiple Grammy Award winners. And music can actually teach us a lot about collaboration. Sometimes I would stand there at the side of the stage watching as my artist performed. And if I looked to my left, I could see the thousands, tens of thousands of people enjoying the show. But if I looked to my right, I could see backstage. and behind the scenes. Now, most people only ever get to see the singer on the stage with the spotlight on them or the microphone in their hand. They rarely get a chance to see the hundreds of skilled professionals backstage who are just as much a part of making a creative and successful show as the musicians on the stage. You see, creativity is a team sport. It requires a culture of risk-taking, cross-pollination of ideas, and continuous evolution. But fundamentally, it requires a deeper level of collaboration to create great art. Talking about art, I'd like to introduce our next keynote speaker, Guy Kawasaki. He is an in-demand innovation speaker, product evangelist, and best-selling author of books including The Art of the Start. Guy possesses extensive knowledge of innovation, entrepreneurship, social media, and marketing. But first and foremost, he is an evangelist. And that term actually comes from the Greek word, which means bringing the good news. And the world certainly needs some good news just now. That's what he does. Whether it was the good news of Macintosh or currently the good news of Canva, an online graphics design firm. Guy Kawasaki aligns with companies and causes that empower people, that foster democracy, and make the world a meritocracy. In addition to his work at Canva, he is a writer of 13 books, Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador, board member of Privy, and executive fellow at the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley. So please welcome to the Converge 2020 virtual stage, Mr. Guy Kawasaki.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Guy, great to have you here with us today as well. Now, you're joining us from the Bay Area, from Santa Cruz, I believe. And I remember when I first moved to the Bay Area, a friend gave me a copy of The Art of the Start because he said, this is the Bible of the startup scene. So how does it feel to have been the inspirer for so many entrepreneurs around the world?
It's entirely and completely flattering. I'm a big believer in the concept of a mantra, 2 or 3 words that explain why you exist. And my personal mantra is to empower people. So when people tell me that they've read that book or they've heard a lecture of mine and it empowered them, I know I'm on target for the mantra. So it's very flattering. And James, I want to tell you that was probably the best introduction of me ever.
Thank you.
The research you did and the lines you used and the references you made, somebody really did a great job researching me. So I don't have a hat on, but my hat's off to whoever did that. And I may have to copy that.
It's all yours. Well, Guy, it's absolutely wonderful having you here at Converge. The virtual stage is all yours.
Thank you. The title of my talk, as you heard, is The Art of Augmentation. But before I begin, I want to show you 2 pictures from my past. First picture is a picture of the Macintosh division. We're standing in front of the Macintosh division building, 1984 or so. I'm in the upper left corner. You really can't see me. If I had this to do over again, I would have stood in the front of this picture, but who knew? The person in the front of this picture that's kneeling is Steve Jobs, and he is, of course, the most important person in this picture. But the great thing about this picture is that it's historical because this is the only known instance of Steve Jobs ever getting on his knees for anything. So my past is Apple. I started some software companies. I became a venture capitalist. Today, I'm chief evangelist of a company called Canva. It does online graphics design. I'm also Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador, and I'm a podcaster. The name of my podcast is Remarkable People. But today's topic is the art of augmentation. Let's get everybody on the same page. Let's start with the definition. The definition of augmentation is to make an organization bigger, stronger, and better. And oh my God, if there was a person who wanted to make an organization bigger, stronger, and better, it was Steve Jobs. So I'm using the lessons that I learned in Apple, as a venture capitalist, as chief evangelist of Canva, startup in Sydney, Australia. I don't know if I learned anything about marketing from Mercedes-Benz, but somebody's got to do that job. So all these things, and podcasting, because I interview really remarkable people. So I've learned a lot of remarkable things from the remarkable people. So that's a definition of augmentation. And now I'm going to use the top 10 format to tell you the art of augmentation. And I always use the top 10 format so that you can track progress through my speech, because I have 10 key points. I think the first thing you need to do to perfect the art of augmentation in your organization is to understand the scope of what you're doing. And I call this running the right race. I don't think that building a better, faster, stronger company is something that happens instantly. It's not a 9-second 100-yard dash or 100-meter dash. It's not Usain Bolt. This is a marathon. It takes a lot of work. It takes a significant amount of time. So get your perspective right. You're running a marathon. Or perhaps more accurately, in terms of athletic metaphors, it's really a decathlon, because you need multiple skills. It's not just running. You need other skills. It's not just recruiting or training or educating or developing or programming or bugging or debugging. It's a lot of different skills. And so think of it as a decathlon, but at least it's certainly a marathon. It is not a sprint. Run the right race. The second important factor in the art of augmentation is to show that you care. We are in a very challenging time because of the pandemic and violence around the world. And so we're asking people to do things that they have never done before. The work at home, trying to balance your children, your family, and do this at home while you're working. So you need to show that you care. And I'll give you some examples. So Google has a work for home stipend of about $1,300. So you submit your expenses. You had to buy a desk. You had to buy a chair. And Google utterly, completely trusts you. They don't come to your house to see if you're really using the desk or chair. So they're showing that they care, that they want you properly outfitted to work at home. Another idea is maybe you tell your employees, well, we're going to upgrade your internet service. You may have something that's really slow, but we're going to take you to the next level so you can expense faster internet, because we're doing 5 Zoom meetings a day, and if you have slow connection, it's really a bummer. So we're going to help you with that. And another way you could show you care is helping them with food preparation. So in the United States, give your employees Instacart coupons or DoorDash or Grubhub, for actual finished meals to come to your house. But you're showing that you care, that you understand, that you empathize. That's the second thing you should do. The third step is to accelerate and emphasize and foster and support learning. This is a time when things are a little slower, when you have cut down commute time, that, wow, let's learn the new skills. Let's learn skills that we didn't have before, that we wanted to have. This is the time to do that kind of stuff, because when the pandemic ends, and it will end, we will get a vaccine, and the economy comes back, and stuff starts happening again. We're going to be so busy again, knock on wood. So let's get that skill set together. Learn how to use Zoom. Write the documentation you always wished you'd written. Train people. Get all that kind of stuff done. And don't just wait for the miracle to occur, but prepare yourself so that when things turn around, you're ready to rock and roll. And to do that, you need to accelerate learning. Think of Globant as an example. The Globant University. That's training people and getting people ready for the next level and when things turn around. So create your own university. Train your employees. upgrade their skills. And in fact, that also ties into the previous recommendation, because if you're willing to invest in training and education, you are also, guess what? Showing that you care. The fourth thing, now more than ever, you need to be transparent with your employees, because everybody is a little leery, everybody is running scared, everybody doesn't know what's going to happen. And maybe in a boom time when, everybody thinks every other company is doing well, you might want to not exactly, as Americans say, hang your dirty laundry in front of everybody. But now, when everybody's having layoffs and slowdowns and furloughs, now you can be transparent. The reason why transparency works now is because people want to know. And I think the most damage you could do to a person and to your organization is when people are guessing what's happening. And I kind of always take the high road, and I assume that employees want to make the company successful. And if your employees want to make the company successful, they need to know what the problems are, because you're going to need your employees to fix them. So now is the time. Be more transparent than you ever have been. Let's face it, we're trying to build better, stronger, faster, more innovative, more augmented organizations. So we're asking people to do more. And I think it's only fair that if you're asking people to do more, you should give more. And Mark Cuban is the one who said, now is the time to use stock options. Be generous with your stock options, because, that shows that because stock options enable employees to benefit from the upside. Also, in a financial sense, stock options don't affect your cash reserves. So this is a currency that you should use right now. Share the wealth. Next thing, celebrate your victories. When everything was going great, maybe you only celebrated the major victories, or maybe there were so many victories you couldn't celebrate them all. But now probably there are fewer victories. So every success, every sale, everything, you want to have a positive and upbeat kind of atmosphere. Better, faster, stronger, more augmented. Let's see some success. Let's see where you're taking off, that you're defying gravity, that you're showing that even in an economic downturn, your organization is succeeding. I live in Santa Cruz, and one of my friends owns a skateboard shop, because everybody in Santa Cruz skateboards except me. I'm too old. And so the other day I saw him, and I said, so, how is business? And now he's standing in front of his store, and the store is only open from 11 to 5. It used to be open from 9 to 7. So he's cut out about 4 hours a day. There's a table, and they control how many people are in the store. And so it's not like crowds can rush in. It's very controlled. You have to wait to get in, okay? So I think, all these things are bad factors. And he says to me, Guy, we are open shorter hours, but we are selling more than ever. And, that's the kind of victory you need to tell all your employees. Listen, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Things are going bad. The economy's down. You read the big numbers, but we are doing better. We're open shorter hours. We're selling more. Maybe there's a psychological reason for that, which is if you're waiting to get into a store, once you get in the store, I think you pretty much cross the mental chasm that if you waited to get in the store and you're risking your life to go into the store, you are going to buy something. You're not in there just for the hell of it. So, celebrate your victories. Keep the morale up. build that augmented company bigger, stronger, faster, and more positive. Number 7. Number 7 is, let's face it, many of our offices look like this picture, right? Beautiful but empty. And so this recommendation is about forcing serendipity. And by that I mean, we didn't have to force serendipity before, because when we all came to some place, we could physically meet in the elevator, we could physically meet in the lobby, we could physically bump into each other in the cafeteria, all that kind of stuff could happen. But now, with everybody working remotely, we have to figure out ways to force serendipity. How do we get people interacting beyond the, daily or weekly Zoom staff meeting? My son just graduated from the 8th grade, and it is a school tradition that there is a graduation dinner. And so all the families would come for a graduation dinner. Now, we didn't do that this year because that would be illegal. And so what we did is every family got a gift certificate to order dinner, and then everybody participated in a dinner with a little ceremony via Zoom. So that, I would say, serendipitously, we would have bumped into the other parents and all that at this analog dinner. But now with this Zoom dinner, we're trying to, quote, force serendipity. So figure out ways to force serendipity with breakout groups, with special interest groups, with, I don't really know, but there's got to be ways to force employees to interact with each other so that they develop personal relationships. Like, put your thinking cap on and figure out how to do that, and then let me know what you come up with, because I'd love to tell people how to do this. I know the concept is right. I can't tell you I know exactly how to do it. Number 8. Number 8 is my suggestion that you need to focus on the results. Just focus on what matters. Are people doing their job? Are your engineers doing the designs? Are they writing enough code? Are your marketing people getting the message out? Are your salespeople somehow making calls? It doesn't matter if they're holding a baby in their lap while they're doing this. Just focus on results. Take the high road. The high road means I trust you as an employee. I'm not monitoring what your computer is doing per day. I'm not staring over your shoulder. I trust you. I'm focusing on the results. Hallelujah. You're delivering the results. You're also trying to homeschool your kids. You're working at your house where you don't have all the resources that you might have at the office. Take the high road. Focus on results. Trust your people. Number 9 is, if you want to build an augmented organization, you're going to have to master onboarding. So how do you bring a new employee on board? I think many companies mastered this pre-pandemic, that they had, these orientations, they had where you get your badge, you get your equipment, you're walked around the facility, you do all that kind of stuff, right? But none of that's happening now. So if you want to build a bigger, faster, stronger organization, you're going to need new blood. You're going to need new people. You're going to need new talent. And so you have to master onboarding. I think this should be a very specific project for your HR department. Like, get out of the box and think about, how do we bring people on board? Do we, arrange for them to have Zoom chats with the CEO? All the new employees who start once a week, the CEO makes a digital appearance. Something like that. But you're going to have to master this. Sending them that work from home stipend, and getting them their equipment properly configured. It's going to be a very valuable skill. Now, I'm in America, so we are particularly blowing it with the pandemic. But You may be in a country where you have this control, but I'm taking the worst case, which is probably America. Onboarding is a whole new digital skill now, and it has to be mastered if you want to truly augment your organization. Number 10 is a rather generic recommendation that, I've given you 9 of my thoughts about how to augment an organization. The 10th one is kind of a catch-all, which is you just have to do whatever it takes. This is a picture of Richard Branson, so let me tell you the story. He and I were making a speech at the same conference in Russia. He walks into the speaker ready room and he says to me, "Guy, do you fly on Virgin?" I said, "Richard, I'm United Airlines. Global service is the highest level of United Airlines. I can't risk my United Airlines global status by flying other airlines." And at that moment, this is what he did. He got down on his knees and he started polishing my shoes with his jacket. That's the moment I started flying on Virgin America. So I use this example of Sir Richard Branson, knight, billionaire, owns his own island, kite surfs with Barack Obama. He got down on his knees, so he got one more customer for Virgin. Sometimes you just have to do whatever it takes. Number 11 is my little bonus to my friends. So number 11 is to get high and to the right. This is not a recommendation to take drugs or to be a Republican. This is about how you occupy the space in your customers' minds. So I want you to look at this graph. The vertical axis is the degree of uniqueness or differentiation. The horizontal axis is the value that you present. Now, the magic corner is the upper right-hand corner. There you have a unique product or service and it's valuable. That's where the action is. That's where meaning is made. That's where you dent the universe. That's where you change the world. That's where there's margin. That's where there's money. That's where everything good is. You could have a valuable service that's not unique. There you'll always have to compete on price. You could have a unique service that's not valuable. There you are just stupid. You own a market that doesn't exist. You could have a service that is not valuable and not unique. That's the real bummer. That's if you create a product that nobody wants and venture capitalists have funded other companies to do the same stupid thing. So in all things, whether it's developing a product, developing a service, thinking of yourself as an employee, thinking of yourself as a spouse, the goal is to be unique and valuable. If you are unique and valuable as a spouse, your spouse will love you and never leave you and cherish you. If you are unique and valuable as an employee, you will make progress as an employee. You get promoted, you get more stock options, you get more responsibility. Life will be good. If you have a product that is unique and valuable, for example, when the iPod first came out, think about it. It was the only way you could buy music from 6 companies inexpensively, 99 cents each, on a device that a mere human could operate because of the click wheel. So it was a unique and valuable proposition. Make your product, make your service, make your company, make yourself unique and valuable, and everything will work out. You will be an augmented company, an augmented product, an augmented service, and an augmented person. Life will be good. Okay, so this is the last slide in this presentation. That's a cover photo of my podcast. Basically, if you don't recognize her, that's Jane Goodall, and she's acting like a chimp looking for lice in my hair. So, how many people can say that Jane Goodall looked for lice in their hair? So that's the cover. My podcast is called Remarkable People. If you open up your camera, don't take a picture, just open up your camera and put it on that QR code. It will lead you to where you can subscribe to my podcast. So my podcast is called Remarkable People. It is a collection of interviews with remarkable people such as Jane Goodall, Margaret Atwood, Steve Wozniak, Steve Wolfram, Andrew Yang, Roy Yamaguchi, Christy Yamaguchi, figure skater. I have just the most remarkable guest list. And the whole point of the Remarkable People podcast is to help you become a little more remarkable by listening to every episode. So this is my parting message to you. I hope that you will listen to my podcast because it'll augment your remarkableness. So that's the art of augmentation. I hope that it enables you to create a great company, a great product, a great service, to be a great person, to dent the universe, change the world, and every other metaphor you can possibly think of. So I'm Guy Kawasaki. I'm coming to you from Santa Cruz, California. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you great health and great safety. Take care, and I hope to someday meet you in person. All the best to you.
Absolutely fantastic. Love it. Love it. Now, it's probably a good time to tell you about other upcoming Converge events by Globant. Coming up in a couple of weeks, you will be invited to Converge X, sessions in which you can deep dive into specific topics and with very special guests. Talking about guests, our next speaker is Pascal Finet. Pascal is a co-founder and enfant terrible at Be Radical and Singularity University's Chair for Entrepreneurship and Open Innovation. His work has focused on the intersection of technology, global impact, and culture. He looks to inspire, educate, and entertain and empower entrepreneurs, corporate irritants, and change makers to tackle the most intractable problems of our time. Pascal has spent his career pushing the boundaries of technology and passionately believes it can profoundly impact the betterment of humankind. He has worn many hats in his career. He's built a $1 billion business unit as an early employee at eBay Europe, led Mozilla's Open Innovation Lab, and as principal at Google.org, he invested into social impact organizations. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, he's also built a VC fund, 2 global nonprofits, 3 companies, an art gallery, and taught Pilates for the US Olympians. Amazing. So with that, please welcome to the Converge 2020 virtual stage, Mr. Pascal Finet.
Hey everybody, it's so great to be here at the Globant Converge conference and share the stage with you, James. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, I'm Pascal Finet, the co-founder of Be Radical, and in the next 10 minutes, I will take you on a trip into the future. And we're really excited about it. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you're feeling a little bit like my feline friend over here, so you're getting ready to jump, you're taking in all the information you have learned, everything you know, everything you're reading today, everything you're learning today, and you're getting ready to jump just one more bit of information, and if you're feeling a bit like that, fret not. That is my normal state, particularly in this new crazy time. But here's the most important thing I can tell you about the world. Tomorrow will look dramatically different than today. And I used to say this for years and years now, and people kind of like smiled about this, but now I do think we're all feeling it very acutely. There's these 3 time horizons, and now, next, and beyond. Our friends from EYQ over at EY, the think tank there, have framed this in this beautiful language. Now, here's what's happening right now. The now and the next collapse into a single point in time. There is no 2 time horizons anymore. And the beyond, which used to be beyond 5 or 10 years, is now the world beyond COVID-19. That opens up really interesting opportunities because technology moves on an exponential curve. We know this. Computing is a good example for that. Adoption is typically lagging behind. And now we're seeing something we call the C19 bump, this massive explosion in adoption. The sheer fact that you don't see me in person, but watch this as a video, is a good example for that. The New York Times used the words BC and AC, and of course BC is the time before COVID-19, AC is the world after COVID-19. Here's where I get excited about. There's things which will be gone, which we do in a world before COVID, which are not real anymore in this new world. And there will be new behaviors. Think about, for example, wearing a face mask. But there also will be behaviors which are changed. And the interesting question, and this is where the opportunities lie for me, is what are the things which are going to change? What are the things which are new? What are the things which are gone? And what is the residue of those as they're moving from BC to AC? And I want to give you a framework to understand this much better. We start out with this one here. What you see here is a good example of why we are really ill-equipped to see the thing I'm going to talk about in a minute. What you see here is mobile phone or digital media usage. The red bar says mobile phones, blue is PC, laptops, white is other internet-connected devices, 2008, 2018. Now here's the interesting insight. Of course, this is exponential growth, as we all know. But more importantly, imagine I would have shown you that slide in the year 2008, and all you could see is the data for 2008. Now, who truthfully would have said, looking at the data, I believe the world is going to change? Most of us wouldn't. And I've done this exercise many times. And ask yourself this simple question. When in this timeline would you have thought the world is going to change? Mobile is taking over. And the median answer we get from all around the world is the single one all the time, 2012. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you look at when some of the most interesting companies were born, which leverage mobile at their core, Airbnb 2008, Uber 2009, WhatsApp 2009, Instagram 2010, and the list goes on and on and on. The important bit is this. We would have missed these companies not by 3 months, we would have missed them by 3 years. We need to get really good at reading what we call weak signals. And we are living in a world which is abundant in weak signals, which shows us where the future is going. Classic examples, compute. Computers are becoming so powerful that by 2029, you will buy a $1,000 compute device which has the raw compute power of a human brain. And we do know that computers are doubling in their capacity every 2 years, meaning 2 years later, 2031, you've got 2 human brains, and then 4, 8, 16, and so on. And by 2050, 2060, you've got all of humanity's combined brain power in a single $1,000 compute device. Tomorrow will look dramatically different than today. AI and algorithms, we see this truly exponential growth, of course. But when you look at the data, it's crazy. AI in the last 7 years has become 300,000 times as powerful, and it's currently doubling every 270 days. Energy. All it takes to power the world's energy consumption using a solar panel, and of course this is a theoretical assumption because you would need to transport that energy, is what you see here is a big square. We're living in a world which is abundant in energy, yet we're still fighting wars over fossil fuels, which is crazy. Genetic engineering, same thing. The cost of sequencing a human genome has come down from 2-something billion US dollars and 7 years of effort as part of the Human Genome Project in 1999 to less than $1,000, and it's expected to drop by another order of magnitude in the next 5 years, and then it will just go down and down and down. And just think about what the opportunities are. All weak signals, some of them stronger than others, which point towards a very different future. But here's where we get really excited. This is why I think COVID points towards something much bigger, because we now see a lot of new or emerging weak signals. A good example is remote work. Clearly, remote work is with us for a long time, yet most companies don't do it. Now, remote work is here. Most of us are working remotely. Nearly 100% of at least office workers are remote these days. And the question becomes, what are the implications of the implications? Because when you look at weak signals, that is the thing you really need to look at. Because the opportunities, the white spaces, the blue oceans, the green meadows, they're at the further outer edges of those trends. Here's a good example. Remote work. Remote work clearly has direct implications on your people, on your clients, and your resources. Those are what we call the first order implications. Everybody can understand those. But now you're going to ask yourself, what are the implications of that? So, for example, the implications on your people is there's some shift in your hiring, without a doubt. That leads to an increase in your remote locations, that leads to an increase in your talent pool. So suddenly you can become much more competitive than you were ever before. There's another thing which is interesting. If you hire remotely, particularly in more rural areas or areas which are economically not quite as developed, your retention actually goes up. So massive opportunities for the companies which not just see remote work as a thing we need to get through, but see remote work as a real opportunity. Here's another example. Your clients, of course, your in-person meetings are going down. We're all having meetings on Zoom and WebEx and God knows what. Your video Inc. meetings are going up for sure, but here's a fascinating thing. Your business attire might go down because now suddenly in a video environment, we all feel a little bit more comfortable to be who we are instead of showing up in a suit or a nice dress. What does that mean now? Well, if you're in the business of being a tailor, bad luck. But also your client relationship might go up because now your client doesn't see you as a fully dressed, well-dressed person in a suit or in a dress, but they now see you as a real human being wearing the t-shirt from your alma mater. Last one here, resources. Of course, office space will go down, cost will go down. That is inevitable. Now you can ask yourself, what does it actually mean if office spaces go down, for example, in our cities, which will get probably revitalized and become more livable again. But also home office use will go up without a question. So now we're already seeing in the market for residential real estate, people buying bigger houses because they now need a home office. There's interesting questions around what do you do with your benefits? So now suddenly companies might think about, do I give you a stipend towards your home office? Here's a really fascinating one. Your IT infrastructure use will go up. Of course, most of that stuff goes into the cloud. We're now using many, many more tools because we're remote. That gives you a little bit more of a cybersecurity risk without a question, because now you've got much more surface area, attack surface area. Cybercrime will go up because there's an attack surface area. And here's the interesting implication of that implication. If cybercrime goes up, I expect that cryptocurrencies will also go up because cybercriminals love to conduct business in cryptocurrencies. So now might be a good time to buy a few Bitcoins to hedge against this new world. When you do this and you do it extensively, it looks like this. We call this a disruption map. And if you're interested, you can go to our website. We have a free online course which teaches you this in detail. Now, the important thing about this is change happens at the implications of the implications, at the third, fourth, and fifth order magnitude of changes out there. And you have to do this. Now, here's the question around what is the residue of all these changes? Again, lots of weak signals will never turn into something, but many, many do. Remote work has an interesting weak signal residue part to it. The median daily commute in San Francisco is about an hour. Now, we're working remote, so suddenly you've got 5 more hours in the day which you don't spend sitting in a car. So now the question for me becomes, what is the residue of this? How many people do want to go back to that, namely sitting in a car for 5 hours? And we already see the data. This is data from a recruitment firm which asked office workers across the United States, and 50% of them said that they want to continue working remotely. So as you're looking at other weak signals we're seeing now in this COVID world, say, for example, food delivery, a thing we seem to be all doing now, contactless payment, contactless anything, the changes in travel, we see it everywhere. So my encouragement for you is start mapping those weak signals, become curious about them, spend time with your teams, your family to figure out what does this weak signal look like and what are the implications of the implications? Because here's the thing. All these weak signals, when they turn into something, it happens gradually and then suddenly. And the companies which see the gradually, they are the ones who will win. Now, we're living in truly extraordinary times. Of course, there's COVID. And I don't want to belittle just 1 second the implications of COVID on humanity, on our families, our societies, both from an economic as well as from a health perspective. But I want to remind you that we do live in the most amazing times ever, because for the first time in human history, you, people, communities, small groups of people have the same innovation power as large corporations and even governments. So it is in our hands to create that future. If you want to be in touch, the simplest way to be in touch with us is if you send an email to this email address, just an empty email. It's a bot. It will reply to you with my personal contact details. We're sharing all our research on a public mailing list. We'll add you to that list. Thank you so much for having me. Create the future and build what matters.
And thank you, Pascal, for taking us on that trip to the future. Some fascinating insights on the C19 bump, weak signals, and implications of remote working. I may have to share Pascal's disruption map with my tailor. Now, today we've been learning about the idea of augmented collaboration, and we're seeing the implications of this across different industries. Many of the clients that bring me into keynote at their conferences and meetings are large professional services companies such as finance, accounting, tech, and legal firms. In fact, my wife is actually a lawyer, and when we first started dating, I would visit her in her office, and she would be sitting at a desk with piles of paperwork surrounding her as she worked late into the evening going through some due diligence on some deal for one of her clients. I remember thinking then, what a huge waste of human creative potential that was. But recently, there was an interesting contest between an artificial intelligence that had been trained on commercial law and lawyers from some of the best law schools in America. The AI and the lawyers had to review 5 NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, to spot all the errors and the omissions. The AI scored a 94% accuracy rate, but the human lawyers only scored 85%. But there's more. It took the human lawyers, on average, 90 minutes to review the agreements. It took the AI just 26 seconds. Then recently, something interesting happened. In California, a young man called Robert Huang started a special kind of law firm. Robert had initially trained as a computer scientist before going on to study and qualify as a corporate lawyer. In his first job at a law firm, he discovered how mind-numbingly boring a lot of legal work actually is. So what he would do is spend his days doing his legal work, and at night he went home and he programmed an AI to do the work that he'd been doing during the day. By the end of the first year, he essentially replaced himself. But because he was entrepreneurial, what he decided to do next was to start a new type of legal firm. He called it Robot, and Huang. And there's only one human partner, him. The other 2 partners are AIs. Apollo is an AI that specializes in mergers and acquisitions, while Daria specializes in intellectual property litigation. Human plus machine working together. In using AI to augment his abilities as a lawyer, he created a very efficient and profitable type of legal firm. Robert focuses on the strategy and building relationships with clients, while the AI focuses on the contract creation, review, and process automation. Voila, augmented collaboration at work. Next up, we have Marina Sonlary of Globant and Christian Tomasowski of FIS. With more than 17 years of experience at Globant, Marina currently holds the title of Chief Solution Officer for the East region. Her career at Globant has seen her taking on different roles, including testing lead, quality assurance manager, and business development director, amongst others. I'll let Marina tell you a little bit more about Christian. Marina and Christian, the virtual stage is all yours.
Okay, so thanks, James. Hi, everybody. My name is Marina Sonlary. I'm currently Chief Solution Officer at Globant and have been with Globant since the very start. And well, I'll be doing a chat with Christian, who's going to be joining me. And we're going to talk a little bit about ultimate dream teams, building dream teams in this distributed times. So Christian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know what, FIS does and give us a little bit about you.
Well, hey, everyone, this is Christian Tomaszewski. So I'm with FIS. They really power the financial world. My group specifically is within the mobile banking division, and I lead the mobile development team.
Yeah. So Christian, tell us, how big is your team? How many people do you have working product development nowadays?
Yeah, so within the actual development organization, we have about 200 people, although we work pretty closely with another 200 people who are responsible for either operations, getting the apps into marketing. So we're really kind of connected throughout the organization to about 500 people.
So Christian, when I think of product development, I think of teams interacting, throwing ideas, getting research on the table. What are the users doing? How has COVID impacted how you guys interact? I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so even before COVID, we had a very distributed team. We had teams in San Francisco, in Milwaukee, in Peru, in Argentina, in Colombia, right? India, Philippines. So this was something we've been trying to solve for a little bit, right? How do you get the ideas to the people actually doing the work? So what it's led to really is speeding up some of the tools that we've used, things like mind maps, things like different methods of communication. And it's really a refocus, right? The way teams deliver their value the best is by being self-driven. And so really helping to understand why what they're doing is important, what the value is that we're looking for out of it, and then leading it up to them to define how they're actually going to do it.
Perfect. And do you think, so COVID really didn't impact the way that you guys work, would you say? I mean,
what it did was force us down out of some of the habits that we had where there were still in-people interactions to go the final mile, right? And to make sure that all of the conversations are now happening digitally.
Yeah. And how do you feel product development provides the idea how the product is going to go. How did you find that COVID impacted your relationship with other areas that will build the product? Because those areas might not have been distributed. I mean, you guys were used to working in distributed way, but can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things that brings a distributed team together is a crisis and how they manage through it, right? Yeah. And so banking being an essential service, right, was something that needed to keep running even during the early days of COVID when people weren't sure quite how to do it. Yeah. We also saw some pretty interesting changes in how people are actually interacting with their banking services, right? So mobile banking by now.
Tell us a little bit, because I imagine everybody using mobile nowadays.
Right. So you would think that, right? But there's a large swath of the population that hadn't, even 10 years into the availability of mobile banking. So if you go to April, we saw about a 200% increase in new user registrations compared to the month prior. We saw huge spikes in sign-ons. We saw significant changes in people's behavior. People are depositing checks through their phones for the first time. People are trying to do things that they normally would have done by going into a branch. And so we saw this huge acceleration in what had been kind of a steady growth curve. And it's something that we expect to stick. There's a survey that we did, and about 40% of people coming out of COVID expect not to go back to a branch.
Yeah, well, that is true. I mean, and how do you feel that, based on this information that you got, were you found yourself working a lot more on tuning your product, and, tell us a little bit about that, right?
Yeah, so as you see all of these spikes, it really came down to preparation. So even going back to January, before it was quite clear what direction COVID would take, we started asking ourselves, jointly with our operations teams and our customer-facing teams, are we ready? What happens if all the branches in the US close? Can we handle it? What do we need to be prepared for? So throughout February, we were actually going through jointly with teams, disaster recovery exercises for how to handle the extra capacity. Now, when the rubber hit the road and come April, we saw these huge spikes. Of course, it didn't go quite as easily as all of those preparations, but we were able to get through it without any outages. And that also allowed us then to look forward to continue not just operating the business during this huge spike, but how do we move forward with all the initiatives that we had planned in terms of some modernization of pieces, releasing new functionality.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you had to say like 2 top recommendations, you worked with distributed teams before. So what would be your take if you had to provide 2 top practices?
So the first practice
for product
is to
development.
make sure that people know who to talk to and how to talk to them, right? Email will kill you. People will have this feeling that they've sent an email, they've done their part, right?
Yeah.
And that will slow things down. You'll get to the wrong result. What you need to do is, even though people are remote, make sure that they're still talking face-to-face as we are now, that they have good chat solutions, be they Teams, Slack, etc., that everyone agrees to use, and that there are rules of the road for how you communicate, right? Expectations for just in time. You need to reach out to people. You can't just send an email. So that's first, right? Make sure that people have the tools and a agreed to process between the teams for how they're going to talk. The second major thing, especially in an organization as large as FIS, is just knowing, right, where do you go for certain answers? And so be it a crisis or a new project, make sure that even for that, people have defined roles, right? Someone's responsible for reaching out through the organization, getting the right people there right when you need them, not waiting for it. Make sure someone's responsible for, actually doing whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, and make sure someone's responsible for basically being the mouthpiece, right? Here's what we did, here's what we need to do next, and then aligning on who can actually help do that.
So do you feel like you had to reset the ground rules for your teams and all these during COVID, or was that something that was already laid out? Because I think it's very important, but sometimes teams that are not used to working like that, having to tell them who to go to for what, it's like just setting their ground rules again, right? What do you think?
Exactly. So in certain parts of our organization, those ground rules were there. We've been practicing for years, right? The tricky part with COVID is that now expanded in scope, right? You go from 200 people doing that to 50,000 people doing that. And so part of that institutional knowledge amongst the teams is there, right? People had to kind of evangelize that throughout the organization of here's actually how you connect, right? And so that was done through management meetings. That's done through team conversations. That's done through publishing documentation, process, best practices through your corporate intranets, right? So really, it's a kind of a mix of both, right? It was there, it got accelerated, and of course, right, compared to a normal, just how do you go to scale distributed? How do you handle that with all the stress that people have taking care of their kids at school, right, and being outside of their normal patterns?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Christian, just wrapping it up, if you had to sum up this whole building a dream team, right? A distributed dream team, you know, what would be your key takeaway that you, especially for someone who might be listening that hasn't done this kind of thing before and COVID just fell on them, right? What would be your key takeaways for them?
Yeah, so fundamentally, if people are in person or distributed, what makes a team successful is exactly the same. The trick with a distributed team is how do you make sure that they're talking together, right? How are those communications happening? And also, how do you make sure that the teams who now are empowered to really drive their own results are getting the information that they need, really understanding not by the detail, what are you trying to achieve? Rather, what is the value that they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, perfect. Well, Christian, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. And well, I appreciate it.
You as well. Looking forward to talking again soon.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you, Marina and Christian. As we've been hearing about today, when employees no longer have colleagues sitting next to them to ask for their suggestions or to learn from, AI can actually become the solution to augment team skills and improve collaboration. As the era of human versus machine competition ends, an entirely new one is opening up based upon human plus machine collaboration. And we call these new hybrid collaboration systems centaurs, after the half-human, half-beast creatures of ancient Greek mythology. Now, last year, I spoke in 26 countries, in Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, United States, Spain, Italy, UAE, Singapore. Every culture in the world has its own version of the centaur. In Spain, it's the minotaur, the half-human, half-bull. In Brazil, it's the mermaid, the half-woman, half-fish. Asian culture abounds with different types of centaur. A more modern equivalent would be in the movie Iron Man, where the Tony Stark character, played by Robert Downey Jr., has an AI assistant called Jarvis. But today, this idea of the centaur, the half-human, half-something else, is not fantasy, it's reality. In the world of chess, for example, centaur chess players exist, a human paired with an AI program. And they'll be the strongest human chess player any day of the week, but they'll also be an artificial intelligence working on their own. That's because centaurs combine our ability as humans to be creative with the tactical capabilities of an AI. For example, augmented coding can shorten the learning curve as coders can receive suggestions to improve their work and increase productivity. That's what our final guest will be talking to us about today. Aldo Sponton is Globant's head of AI development, an eager technology and math lover. Aldo has a vast experience as a teacher and research in signal processing and machine learning in universities in Uruguay and in France. His primary focus is the strategy of digital and cultural transformation of companies based on a data-driven mindset. He is part of the leadership team of the Artificial Intelligence Studio at Globant, where his team leverage the usage of AI algorithms in end-to-end applications, combining user experience, business needs, and technology innovation to bring exciting new journeys to Globant's clients. Aldo has an electrical engineering degree, a master's in science degree in applied mathematics, and a tech MBA degree. He is the co-author of the book, Embracing the Power of AI, a gentle CXO guide to Artificial Intelligence, in which the impact of AI is analyzed both from a technical and a business perspective. He's joining us today from his home in Uruguay, and I think I may even spy another guitar in the background. So please welcome to the Converge 2020 virtual stage, Mr. Aldo Sponton.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this first virtual edition of Converge 2020. My name is Aldo Sponton. I'm a VP of Technology, and I lead the research and development of artificial intelligence at Globant. As we all know, we are living difficult times today, so I hope everyone is safe and at home. I wish that we can all come out of this situation and evolve towards a better stage of humanity. The topic today, we are all talking about the legacy that this situation can leave us. We are all talking about augmented collaboration, about our ability to leverage technology and augment the way we do things, both individually and collectively. AI has brought us several revolutions. In the field of, for example, computer vision, back in 2012, an algorithm based on convolutional neural networks outperformed every other approach to image classification at the time. Or for example, also in the field of voice recognition, when in 2015, a deep learning algorithm reached levels of word error rate similar to those of humans. But my idea today is to talk about a very particular revolution inside the field of artificial intelligence, which began to take shape, let's say, about 2 years ago, and which today leads us to explore new ideas for human-machine collaboration. And that revolution is natural language processing, or NLP. NLP is, of course, much more than 2 years old, but some of the techniques, or the technologies that spawned this revolution today were born, let's say, 2 or 3 years back in time. That revolution has a word, and the word is transformers. I won't enter into the technical details of transformers, and those are not the robots in the movies. It's transformers. This is a novel deep learning architecture introduced in 2017 that is especially effective for NLP tasks. These architectures give birth to language models that are capable of deeply understanding the way in which we as humans communicate with each other and transmit our ideas. They even have the amazing ability of generating text, generating coherent and meaningful text, even when they are conditioned or forced to speak about made-up topics. It's a superb ability for this kind of language models. And given this revolution in natural language understanding, there has been a lot of effort to apply the same techniques to understanding programming language, to understanding code. The fundamental ability behind these language models is to basically represent the semantic information in words or in phrases as numbers, so computers can deal with them, so arithmetics in those number spaces can have a semantic meaning, so you can do operations with these kind of vectors, these kind of entities, and these operations will make sense in a semantic perspective, or from a semantic perspective. Same idea can be applied to code. So we can train models to learn how to numerically represent code, the functionality behind a piece of code. And we have done that. At Globant, we have developed some language models that are capable of understanding both the way we write code and the way we describe the functionality of that code. These models are basically the heart of augmented coding, something that Martin presented earlier today. A platform basically to enhance development, to enhance capabilities, developers' capabilities through these models that were trained to understand both natural language and programming language. In terms of data, we have trained these models with almost 1 billion lines of code in the different programming languages that we support today. Those are Java, JavaScript, C# and Python. And we have in our roadmap support for other languages such as TypeScript, C++, Kotlin, and Golang. But what are these models capable of? Well, first of all, they are capable of understanding pieces of code, and not just understanding the pieces of code, but understanding the relationship between the functionality of two pieces of code. And when I say understanding, I mean, again, being able to represent in numbers the functionality of those pieces of code. So if two pieces of code are doing or are implementing the same functionality, even if they are using, even if they are not using, the same words, the same instructions, or the same structure, their representation will be similar. And that's the fundamental result behind augmented coding. It's the same principle that make NLP work. It's representing the words or representing the semantic of a word in numbers. So operations in that numeric space will have a semantic dual in our language. Secondly, when we combine these code vector representations to natural language representations coming from NLP models, we get the semantic search or the semantic code search. In a nutshell, we are able to search for a particular functionality, and the platform will answer with different pieces of code that are basically semantically related to what I asked for. Basically, you can search by functionality instead of search by keywords. Instead of doing a lexical search, you can do a semantic code search, searching for a piece of code by the functionality you want. In this video here, you will see a couple of examples using our plugin in IntelliJ IDE. First, doing a quick search in a Java repository, asking for a piece of code to check if a sentence can be read backwards. The most relevant result is a method to actually check if a string is a palindrome. And that is actually the definition of checking if a sentence can be read backwards. This could be seen like a toy example, but basically is showing the power of combining, NLP and code semantic representation. The second example is a search in C# repositories, trying to find code to find numbers that can only be divided by themselves. Again, the results are functions to get prime numbers. And again, as I mentioned, these are examples that are pretty helpful to show the power of the combination of language models in both worlds, in the natural language world and in the code or programming language world. Last but not least, models have another cool functionality, the ability to automatically document code. I'm going maybe to misuse language here, but it's like we are using the models in reverse. It's not exactly that, but it's like giving the model a piece of code as an input, and the model will generate word by word, just picking words from a vocabulary, from a dictionary, will generate a phrase that basically has, one, it has sense in English, can be read by us, and two, it describes the functionality of the piece of code that I give the model as an input. This is what is called natural language generation. It has its particular challenges, but the results are very, very promising and very cool. All these augmented coding functionalities are available in a web client and in plugins for different IDEs, as we showed in the examples. In this way, we can basically bring this revolution of AI and language models, language understanding, closer to the day-to-day work of our developers. And as Martin mentioned earlier, augmented coding is one of the pillars in which we are reinventing the way we do software to basically do it with less errors, more efficiently, and faster. So that's it for augmented coding. If you want to know a bit more, we have a landing page that is augmented.globant.com/coding. And again, thanks for watching, and thank you all from Montevideo, Uruguay.
Thank you, Aldo. A fascinating insight into augmented coding and how artificial intelligence can actually become our guide on the side. We're now approaching the end of this session. So I'd like to invite Globant Engelbien, Chief Technology Officer of Globant, to share with us his closing remarks. Globant is one of the 4 founders of Globant and is current CTO. His strong focus on technology, innovation, and creativity allowed Globant to become an expert in next-generation practices such as AI, big data, IoT, UX, cloud, and more, while at the same time allowing the construction of a culture based on innovation. Globant is passionate about the digital and cognitive transformation of companies. He developed and launched a social operating system for organizations of the future called Start Me Up OS. Globant is president of Endeavor Argentina and member of the Argentina 2030 Council. He was recognized as Comparably's Best Engineering Leaders 2019 and included in the powerful 25 list of Globalization Today, a recognition that positions him as one of the most influential leaders in the industry. So please welcome to the Converge 2020 virtual stage, Mr. Globant Engelbien.
Thank you, James, and it's great to be with all of you today. Thank you for joining Converge. It is my turn now to try to summarize what we have seen, and I would like to recap, and by looking at what listening to Martin Migoya, what he has said, about that day in which Patricia called him and say, "Hey, Martin, we need to move everyone out of the office and into their workspace at home." It made me feel like all that the difficulty of facing a tsunami. When you see a tsunami coming and you suddenly grab a few things and then you go to the mountains to place yourself in a secure place. And the reality is that this tsunami found ourselves after the wave came out. We have found ourselves being like kind of refugees, okay, with a few things, ill-equipped to actually continue doing the same things. There was many things that we actually were able to convince ourselves that we could do it. For instance, the ability to connect over Zoom or any other collaboration tools allowed us to actually connect, and suddenly I believe that on top of the virus pandemic, we have also seen a pandemic of getting convinced. So essentially, leaders across different organizations have now realized that working remotely is feasible, and it's also that you can achieve good results. So as Pascal was saying, we will see in remote work a strong signal that something that's not going to come back so easily to the way it was before COVID. So I would like to highlight a few things. I believe that in this particular time, we have lost many senses. While we are able to connect and to collaborate, still we have lost many senses. We have lost, for example, the ability to listen to things that are happening next to the coffee machine, or to see on each other's eyes and understand what's happening to our team members, or even perhaps the smell for opportunities, or the tact to actually be a great leader. And I believe that that's something that is very hard to achieve unless we really create, with technology, the ability to create this AI-assisted serendipity that Martin introduced and that Guy Kawasaki was also talking about. I am a founder of one of the fastest growing companies in the last decade around the globe. And as such, we have learned a lot. I'm also a software engineer, and I look at the things from an angle of engineering. And one thing that I really think a lot about is, how do we create an scalable organization? An organization that can actually not only expand the way, the things we produce and the quality of what we do, but also to create unlimited opportunities in a time in which we are faced with many different challenges. We are seeing new competitors, who are really coming from different places, perhaps unexpected, We are seeing new consumer expectations demanding us to create an Uber-like or a Netflix-like experience. We are also seeing higher demand for our workforce. Attracting talent, as Guy was saying, will require you a lot of transparency, meritocracy, creating an environment for a fast-paced development, and also a clear sense of purpose. A purpose that today many organizations will be able to find in the situation that we are living, a situation that definitely will get us more united. So I would say that if you look at the organizational, at creating an organization from the lens of a software architect, you certainly realize that the organizations as we are thinking about are not scalable. Okay, I believe that top-down structures are not scalable. Micromanagement is not scalable. We are facing, as Madeline was saying, new demands in terms of diversity, inclusion, sustainability, agility, a number of things, without entering into a subject of how to attract the right talent. So that's going to be a challenge. And I believe that technology, as we have seen today, will come to augment the ability in which we can organize together, creating a more empowered organization, one in which there is a lot of trust being created, and where under a clear but reduced set of behaviors or values, people will be able to move with more freedom wherever they are in order to make the dreams a reality. Guy was also talking about Steve Jobs and how he became a leader. And I believe that as an entrepreneur, I believe that the number one job of any entrepreneur is to actually replicate yourself. And that implies transferring your dream into someone, making sure that your team buys into that dream, and that they understand how would you move. Once you achieve that, that can scale up a lot. And that's something we've been working on with our social operating system, Start Me Up. I guess that, moving forward, I believe that there will be a need to actually express our culture in a different way, in a digital environment. It's one thing is to be next to one another, and certain behaviors are actually contagious, as if it were a virus. And when you are in close proximity, people likes to, they do certain things, and those behaviors we collectively call culture become the foundation of how the company will evolve, and definitely a clear sign of, clearly will affect the opportunity of success of the organization. So I believe that in the future, we'll need to work a lot on how do we convey our brand and our culture through digital means. How do we digitalize it? As Guy was telling, recruiting and onboarding will happen in a digital manner. So I guess that coming back to where we started, what Martin was explaining about how do we create a more human, less linear thought about our day-to-day work, particularly when we are distributed, becomes of essence. He introduced also the subject of virtual chillouts, and I believe that this is a very interesting concept. And I also believe that that things like virtual worlds will become an opportunity for companies to actually engage with the distributed workforce. I hope you have enjoyed this Converge event and all the lineup of fantastic speakers. Hopefully, we will get back soon into this virtual chill out that Converge has become. And and to talk about these important subjects of how to succeed in a time that definitely looks today more challenging than ever. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Globant, for those closing remarks. As you were just talking there about virtual chill out, I'm suddenly remembered of the importance of this idea of the third place in creativity, somewhere that's not your home, but it's not your work. If you look at any of the great innovations that have ever happened, whether that's if you go to places like Barcelona and you go to the Four Cats Cafe, places where Picasso used to hang out with the other artists, or Cafe Central in Vienna, it's so important to have those places where we can get together to collaborate, to exchange ideas, and perhaps even have a coffee together. So, unfortunately, we have come to the end of this session on a new era of collaboration as part of Converge 2020 virtual conference. I hope you've been inspired by the guest speakers that we've heard from today. Martin Migoya shared with us the role of augmentation, culture, and place in improving collaboration. Guy Kawasaki taught us about the art of augmentation. Melanie DiNonno helped us to see the potential of social media to affect change in the world. Pascal Finette opened our minds to weak signals, the implications of remote working and disruption maps. Marina and Christian gave us an insight on how to build a distributed dream team. Aldo showed us how a new era of collaboration based upon human plus machine is helping coders produce some of the best work of their lives. And finally, Globant inspired us to scale. So if you've enjoyed this session of Converge 2020, please leave your comments in the chat box. Also, a final reminder of upcoming Converge X this July 7th. It will include a conversation on disrupting and innovating a legacy industry with Smile Direct Club CIO Justin Skinner and Globant CEO Martin Migoya. I'd like to finish by sharing something the popular American children's broadcaster Mr. Rogers once said. He said, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things on the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping." I know many of you have been using your time over the past few months to help your families, your communities, and your companies. And I really thank you for that. I'd also like to thank our speakers today, the team at Globant and all the helpers backstage for putting this virtual event together. My name is James Taylor, keynote speaker on creativity and innovation. It has been an absolute pleasure being your host today. I hope to see you at a future Converge event. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and keep creating.